Hey everyone, and welcome back to Sasquatch Theory. Today we have a few more Bigfoot emails that we will be reading off. The membership channel is ready and about to take off, so I hope you guys are ready for that. If you have had a Bigfoot ice sighting encounter that you would like to share, please contact me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. Alright everyone, let's get into these Sasquatch encounter emails. Hello, my name is Adam. I am 31 years old and I am from Petty Harbor in the province of Newfoundland, Canada. I am an avid rockhound and amateur prospector, so I spend a lot of time out in the woods collecting rocks and taking samples. Nature is a passion of mine. I guess the first experience I had was when I was 9 or 10 years old. My friends and I were playing Tonka trucks and had gathered a huge collection. We cut a bank behind my friend's house and turned it into a mine. One day we were playing on top of the bank, in between a few trees and bushes. On a little path we made, my friend said to me, "Hey, did you see that?" And I said, "See what?" And then out of nowhere a rock hit the truck I was playing with, and we got out of there. For over a week or so, we were too scared to go back. We never heard anything there since. And at the time, I never associated that with Bigfoot activity. Fast forward 20 years or so, about last year I moved to a small town called Gander in the middle of the island to pursue my prospecting career with my girlfriend. I have spent many days and nights out around in the Avalon Peninsula of my island in the woods, so I am sort of familiar with being in the woods, and I have seen black bear, moose, which are our biggest animals on the island. I am more likely to see a moose than a bear, so I don't really get scared of being alone with no weapon other than a bear banger and some bear mace. One day after we moved to Gander, we decided to drive down to collect some rocks. A friend who was with us told us about her experience that she had with another friend in this area 3 weeks prior. She said they saw what seemed to be a bear standing upright for about 15 minutes, and then it turned around and looked at them. They got the heck out of there in their car as fast as they could. At least I knew there was the possibility of encountering a bear. It never occurred to me that she was possibly describing a Sasquatch encounter. We went down and collected our rock specimens and left with no problem. The area I am talking about is across the street from my house. There is also a giant lake and endless forest back there. I never sleep in, and I'm always up at 5:30, making coffee and scrolling through stuff on my PC. It was a nice morning, so I decided to open up my front room window, and as soon as I sat down, I heard the loudest, most god-awful sound I have ever heard before in my life. I've heard moose, bear, coyotes, and nothing, and I mean nothing, sounded like what we were hearing that night. I listened for about what seemed to be a minute or so, then I ran and woke up Stephanie. She came out immediately, and she was also shocked by what she was hearing. It sounded terrifying at the time, but hindsight, looking back at the situation, it sounded like it was mourning, or it lost something, or maybe it was hurt. This compelled me to look further into what we heard. When she went back to bed, I did a bit of research on my computer. For a while, I couldn't find anything that sounded remotely like what we heard, and then I came across a video labeled "Scary Screams Heard in the Canadian Forest." As I turned it up loud to hear it better, Stephanie ran out scared, as it was the same sound we heard. I was really getting scared at this point, and the thought of going across the highway to prospect and rockhound was quickly fading out of my mind. I never went back to that area for the rest of the season. Fast forward again to this year. It was spring, and after all winter of being stuck inside, I wanted to go rock hunting and prospecting once again. So one day I got packed up with all my gear and got my dog ready. My dog's name is Blue, and it is part Beagle and Shih Tzu. I obviously don't use him for protection, but he is my companion and he alerts me when something is around. So I left to head to my spot, which was across the highway. There was an old abandoned ski resort up there. I used the different ski paths to find different rock exposures while rock hunting the area. It was my secret rock hunting piece of heaven. Until this day, we arrived at the top of the hill, which is next to one of the ski lift foundations overlooking the lake. I noticed there was no people here this day, so it was a little unsettling. I still had the sound in the back of my mind, but the birds were chirping and it was a beautiful day. I jokingly said to my dog Blue, "Hey, if you smell anything, growl or bark, okay, bud?" He is a good dog and knows all the tricks and stays next to me without a leash. He never takes off. But as good as he is, I couldn't ever get him out of the barking mode. I guess it's the beagle in him. About a kilometer in, down the hill, at the halfway point, I seen a good spot to start, so I unpacked my things and got ready. As I did, Blue sniffed and surveyed the area. Blue lay down on the left side of the property, where I was working, facing the woods, which I thought was odd, 'cause he wasn't sniffing. Anyways, I got to work and finally found the rock that I was looking for. I heard what sounded like a branch break. I looked over at my dog, and he didn't seem too worried about it, as he laid there with his head in between his paws. I got nervous and attached him to a leash, so he wouldn't go at a rabbit if that's what it was. So I continued to break the rock open with the rock hammer. I finally got it open, and I was inspecting the inside of the rock, and out of nowhere, in the left-hand side, where Blue was about 100 feet, I heard a set of clings at the exact same rate, almost the same as what I was doing. It kind of freaked me out a lot, and then it stopped. I thought, hey, maybe someone's playing a joke and found another rock to break open, but this time, I hit it. I did 2 fast, hard hits as before. I went to get the next 2 smacks in. I heard 2 clanks back, a lot faster, and you could hear the echo. I had enough of whatever this was, and I started to get my stuff ready to go back home. And then all of a sudden, I heard a loud whistle. And then you could hear multiple whistles. It sounded like they were communicating with one another. This sound was coming from our right, and at this point, Blue was freaking out, barking and crying, and trying to pull on the leash. And then I heard the same whistle come from behind us. I quickly finished packing and started leaving, and as soon as we got to the path at the end of that square cutout, the first rock got thrown. I didn't notice how big it was. I just heard the crash, bang, and thud when it landed in the bushes on the opposite side of the path. It was then I thought to myself, we are being hunted. I don't know why, but I took off running with my dog Blue, and all of a sudden, more rocks were being thrown, and these rocks were bigger than the size of my head. We could hear the rocks flying past us, and we didn't stop running until we got all the way up that hill. I did notice as I was running, I saw 2 fairly good-sized trees tip over, and something was running alongside us, in the brush, on the top right-hand side. It never stopped until about 10 feet from the end, but I never stopped running until I hit the gas station on the opposite side of the highway. I never saw what was doing that this day, but I do know I am never going back again, and in a way, it has ruined the outdoors for me, now that I know we're not alone. I am unsure if this was Bigfoot or some sort of other cryptid, but it's my experience that day and how it happened. All right, and that was Adam's story from Newfoundland, Canada. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let's move on to the next email. All right, this next email was written in by Pam. Hi, Miguel. I hope all is well in your world. I enjoy your YouTube channel very much. My sighting is not all that exciting, but I thought I would go ahead and send it to you. This happened around 2015. At the time, I was 59 years old, and I am a woman. I worked the closing shift in a grocery store deli in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and live about 50 miles away in Laramie, Wyoming. I had a German Shepherd who was the best dog, and I couldn't find a place to rent in Cheyenne due to German Shepherds being on the list of dogs not allowed. I had finally found a place to live in Laramie where the owners had approved my buddy after meeting him. The trip home from Cheyenne to Laramie is a steady uphill climb over a pass with two main roads to travel. One is the freeway and the other is a two-lane highway called Happy Jack Road. I usually got off work between 11 p.m. and midnight, and many times in the winter the roads would be closed by the time I got off. If the freeway was closed, the store I worked at would pay for a hotel for the night, but if it wasn't closed, I was on my own. One winter night there was a snowstorm when I got off at midnight, but the freeway was still open, so off I went. Very soon after getting on the freeway, I was almost run off the road by a semi-truck, so I decided to take the back road home. The plus being that there would be very little traffic, the minus being that the back road was never plowed. The first 20 miles of the back road is a rural area with scattered farms and cabins. The last part is through the Medicine Bow National Forest. It was a very nasty drive that night, snowing so hard that I couldn't see where the road was, and I was going from reflector to reflector, leaning forward, straining to see the side of the road. By the time I got to where the National Forest started, the snow had stopped so I could see, but I was making the first and only tire tracks through the deep snow. I have an older Ford four-wheel drive, and at the entrance into the National Forest, I got out and turned the hubs, locked it into four-wheel drive low, and went for it. The freeway had closed by this point, and I was halfway through my drive home, so there was no turning back. I was probably about 5 miles into the National Forest in a spot where the road curved and headed down a hill. As the headlights were swinging around and pointing down, they lit up the road at the bottom of the hill. There was a dark gray hairy creature standing in the road with its back to me. I would guess about 8 feet tall. It was only lit up for a few seconds as I continued around the curve and down the hill. I absolutely was panicking. There was no way this was a bear. I have worked at a bear sanctuary in addition to being a wildlife artist, and I certainly know what a bear looks like. And not a man. It was way too tall and bulky. And what would a man be doing out in the National Forest at 1 a.m. in the middle of a snowstorm? Being in four-wheel drive low and fighting deep snow drifts, there was no way I was going to speed up to go by this thing. Thoughts of it being able to rip the doors off my truck or break the windows were racing through my head. There are no houses in the National Forest and no other tire tracks on the road. I was totally by myself. There was no way I was going to be able to back my truck back up the hill in the deep snow. Nothing to do but keep going forward slowly through the deep snow. Thankfully, when I got down to the bottom of the hill, the beast was gone. I was barely breathing, and my knuckles were white on the steering wheel. A little ways further on, there was 3 does standing in the middle of the road, not wanting to move. I just sat there for a few minutes watching them and getting my heart and nerves back under control, and then continued my slow trek home. By the time I got home, I had somehow mostly forgotten about it and never told anyone about my experience. Kind of odd. However, about a year ago, I was surfing the internet and came across a drawing someone had done of the back of a Bigfoot. When I looked at the drawing, it felt like I had been punched in the stomach, and the whole experience came flooding back to me. Since then, I have watched and listened to a lot of shows like yours with other people's accounts. I am a wildlife artist and have spent a lot of time in the wilderness. There are other times in my life that things have happened that are a bit questionable, but I will save those for another time. Thanks for listening to my story, and if you ever use this, you may use my name. Pam Earlywine. Pam, thank you so much for writing that in. You did such a terrific job at writing your story, and it was really easy for me to read it out and understand what you were trying to say. So for that, I thank you. Sometimes the Sasquatch get distracted and get caught by humans. Pam, I bet if you would have returned back to that area, you would have found some nice tracks. But I don't blame you for not going back to the area. All right, let's move on to email number 3. My name is Tyson Peterson. Most just call me Pastor Pete. I became a fully ordained pastor in recent years out of direct results of the high-risk jobs I embarked on from my 15th birthday until I retired in 2008. U.S. Combat Arms, police officer, fish and wildlife officer, commercial fish and Dungeness crab fisherman, and a skydiving instructor are my high-risk jobs. First, let me say, I thoroughly enjoy your channel. It's awesome. Thank you, Pete. I grew up in Oregon, both in the mountains and on the coast. When I retired, my wife, our daughters, and myself all moved back to her home of Carthage, Missouri, which is where we currently live. I grew up with all these stories of Sasquatch, especially my grandpa's stories. After coming back from World War II, he worked as an electrician lineman for the Union Pacific Railroad. He would go out to remote camps and put up electric and telephone lines along the tracks, as well as fixing electrical issues with the trains, tracks, switches, and whatever needed to be fixed. His encounters got me interested in the subject. My father's family taught me how to hunt, fish, and track even the smallest creatures. My father's family are American Indians. They don't like the term Native American. They take the subject of Sasquatch very seriously. My first encounter, I was in the Willowa Mountains of northeast Oregon, just north of Pine Valley and outside of Halfway, Oregon. I was 12 at the time. I was fishing in a mountain stream for trout while we were camping. The meadow that the stream slowly made its way through was about 1.75 miles long and made sort of an L-shaped turn at just about 1.25 miles from the head of the meadow. I was in that half mile at the bottom of the L-shape part of the meadow along with my cousin John. We were probably 75 yards from the place we had set our packs down. It was dead quiet. No birds, no animals, nothing. Not even able to hear the stream because it was slowly making its way back into the woods at the bottom of the L-shape. That's when we heard something going through our backpacks and tossing stuff out they didn't want. We couldn't see anything at first because there was a thick, full, tall bunch of bushes blocking our eyesight. We set our poles down, pulled our pistols, with our backs to the stream, began scouting back to the rock boulders we had set our packs on. The number one camping rule in my family was, if you leave camp and head into the woods, you must always have on you a sharp fixed blade knife, a way to start fires even if it gets wet, and you must carry, at minimum, a sidearm. And for the record, my brothers and I, along with all our first cousins, must pass a test caring for and using each piece of equipment. If we were too young in Dad's eyes and didn't pass one of the tests, we couldn't leave camp without an adult. Myself and my brothers had been wandering out of camp since we were 10 years old. I carried a few different ways to start a fire, my custom-made Bowie knife my grandpa made me, and my dad's .357 Smith & Wesson. My cousin and I were about 15 feet from being able to see the person or animal making the noise. So pistols at the ready, we rushed the last 15 feet. We were in total shock and disbelief. It was a juvenile Sasquatch taking the apples and mushrooms we had found in the woods that day. Out of our packs and tossing all of our stuff, the creature looked right at us, paused, at which point we both holstered our pistols, and this juvenile started to vocalize loudly. I told my cousin to do what I do, to the letter, and don't run away, charge it, or try to shoot it. Just then it sounded like a herd of elk was coming down the side of the mountain. I took a fish off my stringer, attached it to my belt, as did John. Whatever came down the mountain stopped about 5 feet short in the woodline, and about 10 feet from the juvenile. I told John, toss, underhand, half the distance to the Sasquatch. I told him again, I'm going to move very slowly and for him to mimic exactly what I do. I slowly got into a great ape submissive posture stance, as did John, lowered our heads, but still able to see somewhat of what was happening. Just then the juvenile quickly looked behind him, back up into the forest, and started to walk towards the forest, but stopped. It wasn't elk. Stepping into the light was another older and much bigger Sasquatch. This one was between 7 to 8 feet tall. I'm not sure what was going on, to be honest, but the bigger one made some low vocalizations to the juvenile, almost like talking to it. The juvenile just took a few of the apples and split into the woods. The big one didn't hesitate. Both John and I were almost ready to crap ourselves as he approached us, as I whispered to John and told him not to move. The Bigfoot walked right up to both of us, dropped our packs, touched us, made a quiet vocalization I have only heard from humans and other great apes, turned, picked up the fish, and walked back the way it came. At first they were really loud, like when they came down the hill, and then they got quiet, but you could sort of still hear them going back up the mountain. Then we heard no more. We stayed in that position for about 10 minutes, collected our stuff, calmly walked back to the other side of the L-shaped meadow, then hauled butt. Nope, we didn't even stop when other family members called out to us who were fishing in the top part of the L. Got to camp, looked at each other, and ate for about 2 hours. Then we told Grandpa. Grandpa made an executive decision, and we chose to move to another campground miles away on Pine Creek in Pine Valley, closer to halfway Oregon. This encounter started me on my journey to prove Sasquatch existed. Well, it's already been proven. However, as things progressed and realized I could actually accomplish that goal, for the sole purpose, I learned later on in life how to actually track the family groups. As well as individuals, I realized while I might be able to teach trusted others how to interact with them and track them, if proof ever came out to the public, they might possibly become the true hunted, whether for research, zoo, or as trophies. So I stopped way short on the proof. Good call, man. Good call. It's already been proven. It's been filmed many times. There are videos and photos floating around everywhere with good stories and evidence to back them. All right, back to his story. However, the vibe I get from you is you want to protect them. If this is what you're after, it may be time for me to teach someone how to truly gather evidence of them. They are so seriously intelligent, and every time I hear someone talk about proving their existence from the BFRO, TV shows on Bigfoot, or other Monster Quest type organizations, I laugh my butt off because they don't understand their intelligence or their capabilities in order to gather the evidence needed. I would like to hear your intentions towards them, because if you truly want to protect them, it might just be time to do just that, and I might be interested in helping you do that. Besides, I have a ton of other encounters you may be interested in hearing, like encountering a mother in February of 1980 on Mount St. Helens, less than 1 month before it woke back up, on Sunday, May 18th, 1980, at exactly 08:32 hours, St. Helens erupted. With the force of 20,000 Hiroshima bombs, I've heard stories of post-eruption encounters by National Guard soldiers and government officials, but I haven't seen any proof. And certain files that do exist from the time and place are still classified top secret. Why would any file from Mount St. Helens eruption be classified at all? Anyways, please let me know what you're after with this subject, because frankly, you're the first person in all these years I have felt strongly about helping and showing the truth. Pastor Tyson Peterson. Pastor Pete. Write me back and let me know, and I'll give you my contact information. I will certainly be reaching out very soon, and I would love to hear your other Bigfoot encounters. And yeah, if you have any tips on how to interact with these creatures and how to have another ice sighting, sure, I'd be up for it. I've had several in the past, and I want another one. I bet that was really cool to see that juvenile Sasquatch and the mother Bigfoot together. I have seen a juvenile before, and it was a really cool experience, and I'll never forget it. I will try to get back in contact with Pastor Pete, and hopefully he will be able to tell us all of his Bigfoot encounters in full detail. If you have a Sasquatch encounter that you would like to share, please contact SASQUATCHtheory at outlook.com. Alright, those are all the Bigfoot encounters we have for today, and I hope you guys thoroughly enjoyed these Sasquatch accounts that were shared from all across North America. Alright everyone, thank you for watching, and until the next one.